The desert planet stretched endlessly beneath a burning sun, a place where survival seemed impossible without the strongest technology. When the alien survey team landed, they moved with pride, their polished domes and shimmering energy shields rising quickly from the sand. To them, this was proof of their superiority, a sign that no environment could threaten their power. But among them was one human, an engineer sent to assist, who worked very differently. Instead of building tall structures that shone against the horizon, he chose a rocky hill nearby and began digging into its side. He layered stone with clay, pressed it tight, and covered the roof with heavy sand until it looked less like a home and more like part of the desert itself. The aliens laughed when they saw him working, whispering that humans still lived like primitives, hiding in caves while others built wonders. To them, his work was not impressive but foolish, an embarrassment to advanced minds. Yet the human never argued, never explained. He simply worked in silence, his eyes scanning the horizon, measuring the winds, and feeling the shifting ground. While others admired their bright shelters, he acted as if he knew something they had chosen to ignore. The days passed quickly as the alien team busied themselves with research and reports, trusting fully in their glowing domes and humming energy barriers. To them, the desert was only a harsh background, not a real threat. But the human studied more than minerals and maps. He watched the sky. At dusk, he noted how the sun's light bent strangely through the dust-filled air. He pressed his hand against the ground and felt vibrations that did not match ordinary winds. He saw faint spirals forming far at the horizon, whirlwinds that grew taller every night. When he spoke, his voice was calm but urgent. He told the others that a sandstorm unlike any they had ever seen was coming, one that could tear apart even strong structures. The aliens laughed off his warning, saying their shields could withstand anything. Some even joked that humans were afraid of shadows, that he was overreacting to simple weather. But as the days turned into nights, the signs grew harder to ignore. The temperature dropped without reason, the air pressure shifted suddenly, and the desert became eerily quiet, as if holding its breath. The human sealed the entrance of his shelter, packing the last cracks with clay and stone, while the aliens celebrated inside their glowing domes, raising glasses and mocking his cowardice. They did not see the horizon darken, nor did they hear the growing roar that rolled across the sands. The storm was no myth, no superstition. It was alive, gathering strength, and it was coming faster than anyone expected. The human had seen storms before, but never one like this, and he knew that when it arrived, there would be no second chances for those who underestimated the desert's fury. The storm did not arrive gently. It struck like a wall of fury, swallowing the horizon in a wave of black and red dust. The aliens rushed inside their domes with confidence, their energy fields glowing brightly against the rushing wind, but their pride lasted only minutes. The first wave of sand struck with a sound like thunder, and the shields rippled violently under the impact. Then came the glass fragments, razor-sharp shards carried by the storm, slashing against the walls with a force their technology had never been designed to resist. One dome cracked with a sharp scream of metal, and panic broke out inside as sand poured through the fractures. Another dome's shield flickered and failed, the wind tearing it apart in seconds. The aliens screamed and fought to seal the gaps, but the storm was merciless. Their equipment collapsed under the endless assault, wires sparking before being buried under choking dust. The storm did not weaken. It grew stronger, pressing down like the planet itself wanted to erase every trace of them. Inside his hidden shelter, the human sat in silence, the heavy sand above his roof absorbing the shock of the storm, the stone walls holding steady against the pressure. He listened to the thunder outside, knowing the domes were breaking one by one, and that arrogance was now turning into fear. Hours passed, each one longer than the last, until the desert was filled with nothing but the howl of destruction. Above, their shining shelters crumbled into pieces, swallowed by the dunes. Beneath, the human waited, patient and still, knowing the storm would not forgive mistakes, and that survival belonged only to those who had respected the land before it struck. When the storm finally began to weaken, the desert was unrecognizable, as if the planet itself had been remade. The glowing domes that once stood proudly were gone, either shattered to dust or buried deep beneath the dunes. Survivors crawled from broken shelters, coughing, blinded by grit, and covered in cuts from the glass-like sand. Their proud technology lay silent, twisted metal and dead circuits poking from the dunes like the bones of giants. In their desperation, the aliens turned toward the rocky hill where the human had worked quietly before the storm. They expected to find it destroyed or buried, yet what they saw left them silent with disbelief. The mound of sand that covered his shelter had only grown thicker, pressed down by the storm, making the structure even stronger. When a stone door slid open, fresh air drifted out, clean and cool compared to the choking dust outside. The human stood there, calm and unharmed, his clothes dusted but his eyes steady. Inside his shelter was food, stored water, and space enough for more. The survivors begged for entry, their voices hoarse and broken, their arrogance washed away by fear. The human did not mock them, nor did he remind them of their laughter. He simply guided them in, one by one, into the safety of his underground chamber. Every layer of stone, every seal of clay, every shovel of sand that they once called foolish now revealed its purpose. What looked primitive had saved him, and now it would save them too. In the silence of the chamber, the aliens realized their survival no longer depended on machines or power, but on the design of the very man they had dismissed as simple and weak. Inside the shelter, silence hung heavy as the survivors sat close together, their proud faces now marked with shame and exhaustion. They remembered how they had laughed at the human, calling his shelter nothing more than a cave, yet it was the only place still standing after the storm's wrath. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, hiding the ruins of their advanced domes under mountains of shifting sand. For the first time, they realized that their machines had not failed because they were weak, but because they had been built without respect for the land. The human had not tried to fight the desert with shining walls or force fields. Instead, he had listened to it, studied its rhythm, and built in harmony with it. Every choice he made, stone walls, clay seals, sand as cover, was not weakness, but wisdom born of patience and survival. As the aliens drank clean water and breathed the safe air inside his chamber, their arrogance broke apart, replaced by a quiet respect that none of them had felt before. They finally understood that strength was not always about power or brilliance, but about knowing when to adapt and when to yield. The human had taught them a lesson without a single argument, without anger, only through action. When the storm ended and the stars returned, they no longer saw him as the strange outsider among them. He had become something far greater, the one who had saved their lives and reminded them that sometimes the simplest path was the strongest. In that moment, they knew this story would not be forgotten.